Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I'm from the internet. Today we are going to be talking about police accountability. And that is to say, there is none. So, we're going to do our reoccurring segment called What the Hell's Going On with the Police State? Now, normally, this is where I would share one or two stories that have happened in the last week. I would break them down and I would show you both the hypocrisy and the bullshit involved with the police state and their friends in the media as they frame convenient narratives to sort of beat back any social upheaval caused by police executing people out in the streets. Because, you know, we can't have that sort of thing. However, the police had such a ridiculously busy week this week, really all I can do is skim a vast multitude of stories that I found, and then I want to get to the larger story, which is how different aspects of the government and the system are working to modify and reform the police with absolutely zero success. So, here we go. Updated. State police troopers justified in fatal shooting of Xavier Hill on I-64 in Goochland. Grand jury finds. This was in Virginia. It's a common theme that happens around a lot of police shootings, which never even get to a public trial, and that is using the grand jury system. A grand jury, unlike open court, is held behind closed doors, and the state has a lot more control over what evidence can be reviewed, what witness testimony can be entered, what facts are actually given to the people in the grand jury to consider before they determine whether or not charges should be filed. 2 suspects dead following officer-involved shooting in Muskogee. This apparently centers around a traffic stop. The people drove away from the police, fled, got out of the car, and apparently ran into a copse of trees, where the police then stood outside, deployed a drone. The drone flew over the trees, identified there was somebody there, and then apparently that suspect shot and killed themselves. DC police shoot and arrest man in assault on an officer while armed. This should have been a mental health call, but apparently the police saw somebody standing in the middle of the road talking to themselves, came over to discuss the situation with them, and then apparently the man took out a knife and they opened fire and shot him in the middle of the street, and then sent him to the hospital, handcuffed to a gurney. Moving on, Athens Clarke County Police Department releases video of deadly police shooting. This was down in Georgia. Apparently police pulled a man over. There was a protracted negotiation as to whether or not the man would get out of the vehicle. They talked with him for a while. Then apparently he got out of the car, said he had a gun but didn't show one, and then they tased him, shot him, and killed him. Modesto family demands answers after fatal police shooting. This was in California. Apparently the family, not knowing who to call because they were worried about the mental status of somebody in their family, called the police. The police came, saw the person, yelled at him, shot him, and killed him. In this one, apparently the person had a social media profile in which he said bad things about the police, and the police, in a meeting sometime earlier that day or that week, had passed out a pamphlet of this person's posts on social media saying this person hated cops and said things like all cops are bastards. Yeah, magically, they showed up when the call came, put him down with a quickness. I'm sure there's going to be an investigation pending. Oh, also, the cop who shot him has already killed 5 unarmed people over the course of his career. Moving on. Man killed in West Sacramento police shooting. Apparently in this one, police had a driver on the side of a road on a utility street next to an IKEA with a big-ass parking lot, had his car surrounded, demanded that he get out of the car. He got out of the car. They said he was brandishing a knife, and so they shot and killed him. Side note, apparently this is the picture of both the knife and the gun that the person had when they came at the police holding a knife. Kind of curious as to exactly how he was wielding that knife, which supposedly he was carrying along with a gun. Moving on. Video captures what appears to be Miami police punching and kicking a man. No, it didn't appear to be. It was, and yes, he was handcuffed. I'm sure the police were feeling threatened for their lives with this handcuffed individual and, decided to beat the shit out of him on the sidewalk. Now, this is the part of the video where I point out to you that all of these stories were published in the last 72 hours, and that if I did a broader search, there would have been dozens of these, and this video would have never ended. However, as I made reference to back in the beginning, I would like to show you 3 other stories I found explaining what different levels of the police, the legal system, and the government are all trying to do to curb the scourge of police shootings, which apparently is impossible to cure because it just keeps happening. Amateurish and unprofessional. Kansas City police shooting training faces criticism. This one comes from the file of the police investigated themselves, determined they did nothing wrong. However, decided, in the sake of public decency, to have some kind of, a training class, just to make the public feel safe. Hey, us police, we're always training to be, better individuals, and thus better police, so we can better protect and serve the community. Let's take a look at what that looked like. In a year that saw Kansas City police shoot and kill 2 black men, in one case leading to the indictment of a detective, officers were told they shouldn't feel guilty about being, quote, the winner in a competition in which the winning prize is their life. They were shown images that depicted media coverage of police shootings as unfair and unreasonable, and they were told that their problems were made worse by local and national leaders who made concessions to appease the inaccurate perceptions of the public. That's right. Police training includes how the police should feel sorry for themselves and how the police should actively work towards exonerating fellow police officers out in the media. Those were some of the messages presented to sworn officers during an official in-service training in 2019 at the Kansas City Police Department, according to a slideshow obtained by an attorney as part of a wrongful death lawsuit. The slideshow, which runs 104 pages, includes instructions to officers on how to respond to police shootings and support the resulting investigations. Police say the goal was to show officers the importance of securing evidence, accountability, and consistency in the investigations. Because when I think about police training and educating themselves and each other, the first thing I think of is, here's a group of folk who are definitely into being more accountable and being punished for their actions. Those who reviewed the presentation said it helps explain the distrust, suspicion, and lack of confidence many communities have with law enforcement in Kansas City. For some, it raised questions, especially about how Kansas City police investigated their own shootings. Quote, the training material's general bent is to take care of our own people, rather than focus on the just and fair enforcement of the law, said the Reverend Vernon P. Howard. Howard noted that the presentation was created the same year officers shot and killed Terrence Bridges Jr. and Cameron Lamb, both of whom were unarmed, according to prosecutors. In the training slideshow, officers who have shot someone are instructed not to immediately give statements to investigators. Instead, they're told to wait for their union representative. When responding to such a shooting scene, the officers are told they should turn off recording devices when talking to the officer involved in the shooting and park vehicles so that the news media can't photograph the shooting officer. Oh, but don't worry, when the person who gets shot is black, the first thing they do is dig up either a mugshot or some kind of, rap video-esque adjacent photo of him to paint him out to be a thug. A section of the presentation discussing the public scrutiny of police shootings includes the images of demonstrators, musical artists, athletes, and media figures holding their hands up in the air, evoking the "Hands Up, Don't Shoot" protest slogan. Quote, sometimes it seems like the public has lost all trust in the police and everyone hates us. One slide reads, a cartoon included in the slideshow depicts a couple sitting on a couch watching a television news broadcast labeled fake news. Quote, today, bloodthirsty cops shot a person committing a crime and pointing a gun at them, the crying newscaster says. The man watching, according to the caption, comments, what were they thinking? So that's what it looks like when the police try to enforce change on themselves. Let's take a look at what happens when the judicial branch tries to flex and, hold the police accountable for their actions. A special unit to prosecute police killings has no convictions. I'm shocked. I am just shocked. I'm just shocked. More than 5 years ago, Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York signed an executive order to address a persistent concern. Police officers were rarely held accountable for killing unarmed people. Often, those who died were black. The solution was to take the cases out of the hands of local prosecutors whose close relationships with the police led to accusations of bias and hand them over to the Office of the State Attorney General. But the change in the legal process has not altered the results. Of the 43 investigations that the Attorney General's office has conducted in the years since, none has led to a conviction, with 3 officers being charged. So apparently that's not doing the trick either. So what do? The police try to reform themselves. They can't. The court tries to reform them. They can't. The state tries to reform them. They can't. So I guess if we can't change the cops, we just have to change literally everybody else who's not a cop, because that's going to be easier. Georgia's Senate approves bill to teach drivers how to interact with police. Less than a year after Rayshard Brooks was killed by an Atlanta police officer who had questioned him for being asleep and intoxicated in his car, it was the black guy's fault. The Georgia Senate backed legislation to require drivers to learn how best to interact with law enforcement. Senate Bill 115 would require the Department of Driver Services to collaborate with the Department of Public Safety in creating an education course that would teach best practices of what a driver should do during a traffic stop. Just be white. The bill passed 36-13, mostly along party lines and with no debate. State Senator Randy Robertson, a Republican and former police officer, said there was a disconnect between law enforcement protocols and what the public expects to encounter during a traffic stop. Quote, I feel that a strong curriculum put throughout the state will reduce a lot of violence and a lot of confusion when citizens come in contact with law enforcement officers, especially during traffic stops. That's right. The retired cop, who's now a state senator, wants to enforce a law requiring everybody else to take a mandatory class to change their behavior, since the police refuse to change theirs, even though they keep killing people. I don't know about the rest of you, but I have very little interest in taking government-mandated behavioral courses telling me how best I can not get killed by the state for driving my own vehicle. It's almost like decades upon decades of a large swath of the United States of America constantly supporting the police, no matter what wrongs they commit, no matter what crimes they commit, and no matter how large the stack of bodies is behind the police department. No, they'll defend them tooth and nail. Back the blue. Yeah, the thin blue line. Well, this is what you get. We are now at the point where the police no longer have to take any accountability. It's just going to be all of our jobs to change how we act, how we speak, and how we go about our daily lives in order to reduce the number of police killings. Thank you very much, Georgia State Senate, for leading the charge on this. Until next time, my name is James. I'm from the internet, and I am out. Peace.